Free energy now.
Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a world.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sterling Allen. You can join us online at freeenergyquest.com. We're joined today, August 28th, 2014, by Peter Crunk of HHO Gas Technologies, LLC. He focuses primarily on HHO gas projects, and besides that, anything that will free us from the bondage of the utilities and from gasoline, he says. But first, let's do our This Week in Free Energy recap. Leading the news in the last week was a story I put up just the next day after last week's This Week in Free Energy show. I was hoping to have this in time for that. I finally did my LENR to Market digest. It's been 4.5 months since I compiled that last. While I've not been able to do a comprehensive one this time, pulling from the many news sources, I was able to organize all of the 120 ECAT World articles by Frank Ackland. Gives an exciting overview of the burgeoning stage of development in the industry. Also, he gave me an overview when I was on Coast to Coast a few weeks ago. He said there's two major developments expected with regards to the ECAT. One, the publication of a report being written by European academics who have conducted long-term testing of an ECAT reactor. According to Rossi, the testing has been completed and the report is being reviewed by a panel of academics to be published in a scientific magazine. And number two, Industrial Heat, the owners of the ECAT technology now, have built a 1 megawatt ECAT plant which will be installed on a production line and will provide heat for some kind of industrial process. Once that plant is installed at a customer's factory and has been operational for some time, it will be opened up for invited visitors from the press to view. According to Andrea Rossi, this could happen before the end of this year. Those are the most exciting or interesting developments in the sector. And also, Andrea Rossi just got his safety certification for his low and high temperature ECATs, which is a major milestone, one of the hurdles that has to be crossed before you go commercial. So kudos to them. There's also news from some of the other LENR parties. A lot of news, of course, on the ECAT, but Def Calian, there were 3 stories about them. The Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project had several stories. The HCAT, some updates on that. Phonon Energy, a new company, Seattle University. Lightstone, another new LENR company. And Piantelli had some updates. And then some general news, of course. There was quite a bit of that. So make sure you check that out. It's kind of a fun overview since it's been so long. We're covering a long period of time. Hoping to be a little more frequent on those digests. I used to do them once a week, but that was a lot of work and no less work to wait and do it every 2 weeks or 4 weeks. I try to be comprehensive on those. So anyway, that's the news on the LENR sector. Actually, that's not all the news in the LENR sector. Solar hydrogen trends down in California, those are the guys with over 100 or 1,000 times over unity hydrogen gas coming from their reactor that involves some 16 different processes, including fusion, fission, and transmutation, according to the model of the inventor Konstantin Balakirian. That's pretty exciting stuff. And he wrote an article titled Andrew Rossi's Drops Out of the LENR Race. I don't know if drop out is the right word because he's just basically rewording what he thinks is going on and trying to get away from the name nuclear, since that's such a hot potato politically. There's still obviously a very phenomenal reaction going on there that is extremely commercially viable, clean, affordable energy, but LENR may not be the best terminology for it. And so just a little, I guess, collegiate bantering going back and forth, so to speak. I don't know if back and forth is appropriate terminology because Andy Rossi's not engaged in the banter, but it was just kind of an open letter in that direction. Also, Solar Hydrogen Trends had a news story coming out of the Independent, the Register, over in Australia, titled "Transmutation Claims U.S. LENR Company," and that's the first mainstream coverage, major mainstream coverage I've seen of that technology. So glad to see it. Was a little bit skeptical. They didn't seem to do their math right in their skepticism. And I need to get up there was a rebuttal that was posted by somebody from the SHT, the Solar Hydrogen Trends team. One of the many things in my overflowing inbox haven't been able to get around to. Ismail Avizo's strong repelling force that we talked about a lot several years ago is back in the news. A team out of Russia has replicated that repelling force. And they say from all peoples that are trying to replicate Avizo's extreme repelling force, we are the ones who came so close to his results. The secret is in the HV and the extreme rate of DIDT, so that the higher voltages are applied to the coil, more efficiency. We'll have this transient process, they said. 3 news stories on the Qmogen this week. I was hoping to have before. There's a major company that I've been wanting to announce, and that's another thing in my overflowing inbox. The first Qmogen ever may have been by Otis T. Carr, who worked as a student of Nikola Tesla. He labeled it Perpetual. The device has a flywheel motor generator driven by V-belts. The government said that Carr was a fraud and trying to destroy the economic system in the United States, so he locked him up for 14 years. Apparently, he made a lot of crazy claims. I shouldn't say crazy, quote-unquote crazy, about flying saucers and other things like that he could do. How much of that was real is subject to controversy, but he apparently was involved in the Qmogen sector as well. You look at the photo or the image that he have in his sales brochure, talking about a 15 to 150 kilowatt system that was available for sale, supposedly, had his name on it. It was called the, what did he call it? X1 or something like that, Model X1. It definitely had the motor and the generator, and it was a Qmogen, a smaller motor powering a larger generator with excess energy looped back to keep the motor turning, apparently pulling energy from the wheelwork of nature. And then I was talking to some people over in Europe and about these Qmogens. They looked at our Qmogen.com page, the /Pez Wiki coverage, an index of now 56 different groups from around the world, 16 different nations who have replicated, or not replicated, who have built one of these things. Most of them basically thinking they're the inventor, the one to come up with the idea, posting videos on YouTube and whatnot. Anyway, she looked at the page and she said that she was familiar with a rich guy in La Palma, Spain, who claimed to have one of these things that was powering stuff in his home. She went to see the demonstration, but it wasn't running. When she got there, he couldn't get it to work. She's going back in October, hopefully to be able to see it running. Another story on the Qmogen front, this guy in the military over in Europe, out at sea, told a sailor about this Qmogen concept, what's behind it. He went home and built one, his shipmate did, and was powering a portion of his home with it. So he's going to go and check that out. The guy just lives 3 miles or 3 hour drive away from him. That's going to be later this year. In other news, cosmic induction generator by John Polakowski. The first goal has been to manifest visible energy of the intrinsically invisible formative forces of the living universe. This machine uses 2 Tesla coils operating in conjunction with each other to reproduce these generative conditions in miniature. A funny video was posted actually, I don't know, a couple of years ago by Epic Rap Battles. I think there's 26 million views on this video. Nikola Tesla versus Thomas Edison is hilarious. You got to watch that. Weather Rangers. We own weatherrangers.org, and it forwards to a page we have at PezWiki. This is an email from Alberto Feliciano and David Wells chatting about the purported functions of the machine dissipating Tropical Storm Cristobal. Not sure if I pronounced that right. And they've been at it for all these years, and you have to admit that even though the meteorologists or the weather scientists are calling for, a heavy hurricane season, we have had very mild hurricane seasons in retrospect for the last several years that these weather rangers have been at this mitigation of hurricanes using these $100 basically Joseph Newman types of devices that seem to go into harmonics with the weather and hold things at bay. Mariana Lights. This is a doctoral dissertation launching out of Brazil regarding exotic free energy-based urban lighting. A dialogue I had with a master's student down there, her proposed doctoral thesis on the impact that exotic free energy devices could have on city lighting, enabling the personality of the city to come through like art, much more so than what is presently available technology-wise. When you have free energy, you don't have to have a cord, etc. And a couple of really quick conventional news stories. A 1.5-volt AAA battery runs on low-cost hydrogen production out of Stanford University. And then also solar plant sets birds on fire as they fly overhead. Interesting travesty in the solar energy industry when they have these concentrated solar systems and they don't have a way to tell the birds you might want to fly around this. Well, it's time to get to Peter Crunk, our featured guest. He worked for General Motors until 2009. He's retired now. And he was an assembly operator, machine operator. The management there was constantly asking him to go to engineering school. I guess you have to have degrees to do certain things. And he just said, well, I'm going to be retiring shortly. And so he has some interesting things to say about that. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sterling. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I get a lot of chit-chat from you on Skype, giving me updates on what you're working on and the HHO research that you're doing. And you're really intent on coming up with solutions that everyone can do, that the layperson can do, kind of in an open source manner to free us from our dependence on polluting fossil fuels and the corrupt power interests that are currently running the show.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued about the new stuff out there on the market, and I know there's alternative energies, but we're all misled saying that there's not such a thing. We want to keep us all under the bondage of the utility companies using fossil fuel for vehicles and tied to the grid. There's a lot of inventions out there that are kind of hushed up that need to be open sourced and released on a massive scale. People that try to keep it in their little garages, in their houses, or in their little businesses, and try to keep it like it's a top secret. Well, it will stay top secret, and everybody will be on the bondage of oil. Like I said to many people, no matter how rich you are or how poor you are, even the guy that owns Microsoft or any large company, when their car gets on E, they are pulling into a filling station, or the limousine driver is pulling into the station to fill up. We're under the bondage of oil. And it's time for us to change the wheel, stretch out the oil process in our vehicles, or change the way we use it. So I've been intrigued way back in 2000 8 when I seen Denny Klein on a news program, and he acted like he was the god of HHO. Like, this is my machine, and he acts like he was the inventor of Brown's gas, and I got this and I got that. So I got a hold of him, tried to get a hold of the machine because I wanted to try to use it for automobiles. I didn't know there was such a thing on the market with all these backyard inventions out there, but everybody's trying to put something on their vehicle to stretch out the fuel mileage. So he was very difficult to deal with, and he wouldn't allow me to come over to his place. He says, unless you're a school or some other business, you were not allowed in there. And that time I didn't have a business going, so I was turned away. So I said, well, forget that then. If the American company don't want to deal with me, they want to shoo me away, I'll research the internet, and I'll look for someone else. And then I come across Epoch, and I called him up, and I said, hey, I'm interested with your machines, and do you have anybody in the United States that has a machine that I can go look at in my area? So they gave me an address and a phone number to a paint company out in Chicago. They had the EP230. I wanted something kind of small to mess around with. So I give them a call up, and I said, would you mind me coming out there and taking a peek at your machine and see what it's all about? So I said, come on over. We're going to sell it. We're going to buy a bigger machine. So they gave me a price. So I drove from the Detroit area, and about 3 or 4 hours I got there and was intrigued with the machine, and he sold it at a reduced price. So I purchased it and brought it home, and it had a flashback arrestor on the machine. So I said, well, it's HHO gas, and it's got a flashback arrestor, but in their machines, they run mixed fuel. So the HHO gas comes out of the one cylinder that recirculates into the electrolyzer, and then it goes into the second chamber where you can divert the HHO to the bottom of the chamber or across the surface or in between. So we had it maximum out. It was running through the bubbler. So we were bubbling through hexane, a liquid, highly evaporated fuel. So my brother and I were messing around in this house in Taylor, Michigan, tri-level home, had old flooring, tiles in there. My wife just got done painting the kitchen. She was impressed with her paint job. And it was middle of winter, so we brought the machine in the house, plugged it in, started heating up some pipes in the kitchen, messing around with heating up stuff with no smoke. And I said, boy, that's pretty cool. It's heating up that pipe very fast, and I'm holding it with one hand. I'm surprised it's not transferring down to burn my hands. So I said, well, we're done playing around. Let's not have sparks fly around. Let's go try see if it works with a camping heater. So I go out to the garage and pull out a propane camping heater that has a screw-on nozzle hookup that has, like most people know, propane torches have a vent that uses the oxygen we breathe to mix in with the the gas. So number one mistake we did is we cut off the breather part that mixes the ambient air we breathe, and we had a straight pipe. So I duct taped it to the welding torch tip, and so I said, we got a flashback arrestor, so if something goes wrong, we should be okay. Machine was pressurized to 30 pounds of compressed HHO gas and hexane. So that was like HHO power, and then the flammable liquid that does not implode. It has intense explosion even with any pressure. If you don't even have your machine pressurized, it will blow the top off the machine with zero pressure because the implosion is reduced with the acetone. So we had it pressurized at 30 pounds. We were naive in the beginning, so we opened the torch up a little bit. We lit the glow bulb that had a reflector housing. We heard a swish, and then a big boom. We were standing about 3 feet from the machine, and we thought the boom came from the and we lit. We look over on the machine, and it's bulged out like a balloon. The machine weighs 150 pounds, makes 12 to 15 liters a minute, and when the top blew off, we had flames coming out of the hexane chamber, and the caps were gone. One cap was totally obliterated. I mean, pieces where the hexane chamber was, there's nothing left of the cap. The other cap broke in half, and pieces went flying. throughout the entire kitchen by the act of God, the love of God, we were not hit by any fragments of pieces. There was fragments all over the kitchen stuck in the wall, and we were standing 3 feet from the machine. Nothing hit us. The lid from the machine was stuck in, it hit the ceiling and put a hole right in my wife's nice paint work she did on the ceiling, and she was not too thrilled about that. Then I started to think about, I was going to be a distributor back then. I said, I am not going to distribute a machine unless I have a flashback rusher that works. So I got involved in research flashback rushers, called around. No one sells them on the internet for HHO back then, or there were very few out there at the time. So I called companies up that manufactured oxyacetylene flashback rushers, and they said, we do not make anything for mixed fuel. It will not work. That was the number one mistake they made. When they say you can't, that's a challenge for me. It says, prove them wrong. So they were out of Europe, and I called them up and I said, you said I can't? I said, within 30 days to 60 days, I'll have something that works that will stop HHO gas and a flammable liquid fuel fumes. And they said, yeah, right, kind of laughed. Just, you don't have any engineering experience. You're just a regular person. I said, that's number 2 mistake. I'm going to prove you wrong on that one too. So I love these challenges. People that go to school would be engineers that tell you you can't. The only way you can't is when you're dead and gone from this earth. As long as you're alive, there's always a possibility. So I started researching different things on the internet and started making some flashback rushers. And then some guy I seen on the internet called Hog2, he made a flashback rusher. And I purchased it from him, and he was using some type of plastic membrane. And I said, oh, I'm going to put it through the abuse test. I want yours to see if yours will handle HHO gas and a flammable liquid. He goes, go ahead, put it through the test. So after so many hits, I called him up and I said, it burned up. He said, I'll replace it. So I said, nah, you don't have to replace it. I'm going to dissect it and find out what went wrong with your unit. So I examined his configurations and I found out what he did wrong. And so I made it better. And then I made my small flashback arrestor that works with my large one. Mine's the only one in the world that works with HHO gas that's free-flowing. I have a large flashback arrestor that does 30 liters a minute, and it has no resistance. I can blow a piece of paper clear across a 6-foot table and also stop a flashback.
When we come back from break, we will come back and talk more about Peter's work with HHO gas. Don't go away.
Known worldwide as the most consistently fascinating, informative, and unique program on radio, the Jeff Rense program can be yours to listen to anytime, anywhere, whenever you want to hear it. For pennies a day, our subscribers can download any of Jeff's thousands of programs featuring a treasury of newsmakers, researchers, eyewitnesses, and incredible subjects, all in MP3 commercial-free, crystal-clear 56-bit digital sound, and take these often unforgettable programs with them wherever they go. As a subscriber, you can also listen live at airtime, online, anywhere in the world, or browse through our archives of over 6,000 hours of legendary broadcasts. Subscribe now by taking the link at the top of Rense.com and enrich your mind with the most unique panorama of vital information and the best independent, honest journalism in radio. Look for the Subscribe Now link on Rense.com and give yourself the knowledge you need for these unprecedented times.
Presently, the number 1 technology in our top 5 exotic free energy technologies listing at top5energy.com is what we call hydroxy technology, in which onboard electrolysis creates oxygen and hydrogen. Unseparated, it's also called Brown's gas or HHO. By then adding this to the fuel, the mileage and horsepower of an engine can be significantly improved while reducing emissions. One of the reasons for this is that Brown's gas breaks down the larger chain fuel molecules so they can be utilized and not exhausted, unburned. There are many companies worldwide that are making and selling these hydroxy systems. We've compiled a list for you at besthydroxytechnologies.com. When you find one you like, be sure to tell them that Sterling Allen of PES referred you. Again, that's besthydroxytechnologies.com.
Free energy, now!
Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Peter Crunk of HHO Gas Technologies. And Peter, before we get back into talking about your work with Brown's Gas, you have a story to tell us about back when you were working with GE and
General Motors.
General Motors, and something to do with a radio.
Yeah, I was working in a department and I was running a machine. I've done a lot of manipulation of machines, and I'm pretty creative when a lot of the skilled trades people could not figure out a lot of things they went to school for. I would stand by and listen to a little bit what's going on, and they would be just dumbfounded of how to repair a machine. And time they got done, my boss named Neetha Petty, she was my foreman. She just loved when I was around because she loved when I put all these skilled trades and engineers to shame. Of all the degrees they hold, they think they're all that. And I, as a regular assembly person, proved them all wrong. So when they had problems with machines, I listened to their solution, then I come up with a solution, and I would have a fix before they would figure it out. I would tell them step by step how to fix the machine, and if they didn't follow the procedures, this is what would happen. They look at me and, who you are? I said, I'm just a regular person. I have the gift of understanding mechanics. I was tested at other places, like for Chrysler. When I applied for Chrysler, I was above average in mechanics. So I would come up with solutions before they would, and they would look at me like, who are you? And I would eventually, when it came down to the end, they would follow exactly what I told them. So there was many times with machines, I would be in front of my boss, and she would say, I will bet my paycheck on Mr. Crunk above you guys because I know he's right because he thinks out of the box. And I said, you're right at that. So throughout the time, I proved them many times wrong. They asked me to go to engineering school and do different things. And I said, I'm about ready to retire. I'm just going to use my talents on the outside. So one day I was in the plant, and there was a radio being thrown out in the garbage can, and there was some speakers in another garbage can. So I picked it out, and it was kind of pretty beat up. And I used to bring my Bose acoustic wave to the plant for music, and I was afraid to leave it there or take off from breaks because I would feel someone would steal a $1,000 unit that just rock and roll that plant. They can hear it clear across the plant when I jammed on it. So I found this radio, and I wanted to leave it there on a regular basis, not drag my radio in each day. So I grabbed this radio and I asked the person, does it work? And I looked at the speakers, and they were pretty beat up. The spongy on the outside of the paper was destroyed. So I took it home and fixed that. And before I did all that, I asked the electrician, I said, the cone of the speaker is damaged. The braided wire that flexes is broke apart. And my boss is standing around again, Neetha Petty. She had a big smirk on her face. She knew what's going to happen. So I said, is it feasible for me to put a solid wire to replace the braided wire that broke apart due to excessive wear and tear, because the braided wire, as it moves, it rubs between each other's braids, and eventually it fractures and breaks apart due to the intense movement of the speaker being played. You cannot use a solid wire. I said, you can't. I said, why not? And he explained, because of the movement. There's no way a solid wire can move on a speaker that moves that fast. And I said, yeah? Big smirk on their face. My foreman says, he's going to prove you wrong. So I took it before I went home. I'm working in the machining cell, and we use all kinds of bag ties with plastic coating on it. And I'm looking on the floor, and I'm saying, pick it up, examine it, check the thickness and the flexibility. And so I say, I took it home. I said, I'm going to make this work. So there's the little bracket that comes off the speaker, and then I ran it into this cone, and I attached it, and I made sure that it had the right length and the right flexibility for the length. So in other words, I made kind of like a paperclip type setup that it would move, but not stick it out too far, that it would flex and then slap each side together. So I had the proper distance, and I brought it back to work, and I played it for a whole year on 2 shifts. It played full blast, 2 shifts, and I told the electrician to come on over and check it out when I brought it back in. And he says, oh, that's not going to last for long. It's going to fall apart. I said, how much you want to put on the table? Bet. Let's see. Put your money there, and we'll see how it happens in 1 year. Nah. I said, why not? If you're that sure of yourself and you're an electrician, put the money where your mouth is. I said, I'm willing to put my paycheck. Will you? Nope. So he didn't want to bet me. After a year later, it's still working. I still have it. And the other speaker went out because it was braided, and I haven't fixed that one. But the one with the solid wire works like a champ. Works great.
So outside the box thinking, yay. Let's get back to talking about the Brown's gas. You were telling a story about making this Brown's gas flashback arrestor. Yeah, you played with a lot of different kinds of. You're posting videos all the time on your channel. Isn't it hhogastechnology.com? Is that your website? Yeah,
hhogastechnology.com, and then it links to my YouTube site where I show all my experiments all the way back where I started in the kitchen at the Taylor house, where I'm playing with a little bucket of water. My son and I are playing with Brown's gas, and we light a balloon. It takes off like a rocket in the kitchen in a circle as the gas is escaping, and that's what got me, really thrilled about getting a machine after we played with this homemade setup. And that's when I started researching these machines out there for possibly running on engines. So I found Epoch, and I'm an actual dealer for selling professional grade Epoch machines. They make machines that make gas from 300 liters an hour all the way up to 10,200 plus. Right now, they're also going to probably get one of their machines over to Africa to obliterate the viruses and probably use it to incinerate bodies because of it burns extremely hot without any carbon deposits coming off the stuff it burns. And it's more efficient burning mechanism than any other fuel out there. And I've been dealing with HHO gas on my vehicle also, and mixed fuel.
I should mention that in our listing at besthydroxytechnologies.com, we have Epic presently in the top position on that page, neck and neck really with Global Energy Devices out of Arizona. I'm hoping to interview them. I actually have them scheduled to interview in a week and a half on this show. They've sold some 72,000 systems. Prescott, Arizona is where they're from, but Epic has done a lot of sales too. Do you have any idea about what kind of sales volume they're doing right now?
They are getting into engine carbon cleaning businesses. Right now they're finding out, like I am, they're having a lot of difficulties on the computers of the vehicles cooperating to get fuel efficiency. So there's a lot of situations that prevent fuel efficiency on the vehicles, and I'm trying to surpass that by making different changes in the computer, and I can discuss that after our break.
Okay, we'll be back in a few minutes. Don't go away.
Whether your alleged government has told you or not, America has been receiving nearly non-stop airborne radiation in one form or another from Fukushima for 3 years in March. And now with the radioactive polluted mass of the Pacific Ocean about to hit the entire West Coast, you must prepare yourself. The tragedy of Chernobyl resulted in the development of one of the most potent fighters of radiation poisoning known. It's called BioAge Superfood, a blend of the four most powerful immune-building, radiation-protecting, Chernobyl-proven algae on the planet. Grown in Kamchatka and imported to the U.S., I have taken BioAge Superfood for nearly 3 years and would never be without it. Go to BioAge.com, mention Rents, and get 10% off this essential immune-building product. That's BioAge.com, and mention Rents for a 10% discount. BioAge.com.
As you listen to and benefit from this Free Energy Quest show, as we track the many cutting-edge clean energy technologies likely to not only be ecological, but economical as well, we would like to remind you that we are listener-supported. You can send donations via PayPal to donate@pesn.com or you can click on the donate link found on our web pages. You might consider a monthly pledge. You're welcome to send us ideas about possible advertisers or products to present to our esteemed audience via that email as well. Because we spend so much time doing the news, we don't spend quite as much time as we should looking for advertisers and items we can sell in our store, a process that can be quite time-consuming. So presently we depend on your donations to help keep us afloat. With your assistance, we can help transform this planet from a scarcity slave mentality to an abundance creator mentality with exotic free energy technologies bringing power and freedom to the people. Again, that email address is donate@pesn.com.
Free energy, now!
Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Peter Crunk of HHOGasTechnologies.com. He has been experimenting with a lot of different combinations. He's got gensets. He's been running it on engines and cars. He's been using hexane, propane, natural gas, and most recently ammonia. So let's talk about ammonia for a minute. You've been.
I have not done ammonia yet, but I'm talking with the person that is dealing with ammonia, and if you go on the internet and you type in thrust kinetic KINETIC generator, or go to ROSCH Innovations. This guy is out of Ontario, and he's running automobiles using ammonia. Ammonia does create pure hydrogen. I've put janitorial strength that you buy at Ace Hardware into my EP130, allowed it to pressurize for about 8 pounds. I got videos on it on the internet. You just got to go to my YouTube site, and you just got to type in ammonia in the search on my site, and you can see me demonstrate it. But he's taken it a step further. He's using ammonia in a different way. I'm trying to figure out how he's delivering it. But he says you got to be very careful with ammonia because of the explosive energy that can destroy your engine. So I'm going to be doing some testing with balloons before I try it in an engine. But I've tested it on a balloon in the past, but I'm going to do some more testing on that because I've been doing mixed fuel with HHO for a long time. I've done HHO gas and hexane, HHO gas and gasoline, HHO gas and acetone, HHO gas and rubbing alcohol. My next thing is to go to a party store and get real strong alcohol and see if a guy will put it in my system on my car, because I'm right now running on my vehicle is a vaporizer. It's called it mixes vapors into the intake vacuum. I'm doing some testing for the last week. I've been running hexane, rubbing alcohol, and I have not tested acetone yet because I've been trying to get the right pipe sealing thread formula to be resistant to all chemicals. So I got a hold of that a few days ago. But the amazing thing is when you run vapors along in your intake airstream, just on the intake vacuum line, you improve your fuel mileage because it triggers the computer to tell the main systems to say, hey, I'm running too rich. I got to back down those injectors because the O2 sensors are watching the carbons coming out. So it turns down the injectors, and the vapors take over what the fuel injectors back down on. So I went from 26 miles per gallon in the city to 36 in the city. But when I got on the highway, the vacuum line turns down and more air comes into the intake manifold, and the vacuums are reduced. So I'm finding good results in the city so far. And yesterday I went out on a test run, I put my machine in the back of the car, running about 1 to 2 liters of HHO gas, and the HHO gas is going in through the intake manifold throttle bodies, entering on the outside of the throttle body. You don't want to have them mixed together in the intake vacuum line, because if you have any accumulation of HHO and fossil fuel sitting there and there's any spark back through the intake manifold, you have a exploding intake plastic manifold. So you want to send them in separately, because if this engine shuts off and say your HHO machine runs for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, it will exhaust the HHO on the outside of the throttle body and float upward towards the air filter, staying away from the fumes that are sitting in the intake manifold through the vaporizer. So it separates the two by the throttle body flap, because hydrogen is lighter than air and fossil fuel wants to sink in any device. So that's what I've done, and I've seen it drop off the mileage when I added the HHO back to the system. So it might not be the same issue in all vehicles, but I have not sold on HHO 100% due to the electronic ignition that controls everything. If for any reason there's a knock in your system due to leaning out the fuel with gasoline, acetone, alcohol, HHO, and that engine hears a knock, it's going to do two things. It's going to try to increase the injectors, and if it can't, it's going to retard the timing where your piston is decompressing, and then it fires the spark plug to ignite the flammable fumes that are inside the cylinder. And that's what I'm finding out is the vehicle electronics is working against all these people that's trying to achieve fuel efficiency. So I decided to try to trick the computer by sending in flammable liquid vapors through a bubbler system. And I'm using hexane because it evaporates fast and it does not have leftover residue. And some people have been asking, why aren't you trying gasoline? Well, I know gasoline is going to work because I tried it in my my HHO machine and ran small engines with no carburetor, no governor, and almost blew the piston out of the head because it was cranking at about 5,000-6,000 RPMs, and I had to turn it down. You can see that in the video because HHO and gasoline is very potent together. So I'm trying to avoid the leftovers that are left that are bubbled up or evaporated from the gasoline, trying different mixtures that can supplement the gasoline that can trick the computer.
Really quick, you mentioned the genset, and I did want to ask you about that. I was contacted last week by somebody who's asking, what do we have now that we can power our house with? Unfortunately, there are not any exotic free energy technologies available for sale that can power your house, but Brown's gas is still in the exotic sector, even though it's been in the marketplace, hundreds of companies around the world selling it for several years for fuel efficiency in vehicles typically. Couldn't we use the genset in an emergency genset, a 5 kilowatt Honda system, for example?
Well, I've actually added HHO gas and hexane to the genset. So what I did is I have a 7,000 watt generator with a 12,000 surge or 14,000 surge, and I actually running the natural gas through the orifice that is purchased from a company that sells conversion kits. So the orifice is on the outside of the carburetor, and it goes to a regulator that sees vacuum. So when the vacuum is drawn off from the intake, it opens up the valve, the vacuum valve of the that's hooked to the gas line, and allows the gas to go through the orifice that is a one single screw adjustment. So I was running the generator, and I added HHO machines. And then when I added the HHO machine, that was plugged into the home generator, not plugged in the wall. Nothing's plugged in the wall. The generator is powering the HHO machine. The HHO machine is giving mixed fuel, and then it brings it up to full RPM again. And then I turn down the natural gas again, where it's just chug, 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 and then I plug in the other machine. I got to make sure it's at the right RPM because I'm not running a true sine wave generator. So a true sine wave generator, you can run it at a lower RPM. So I got to keep it at a certain RPM so it can catch up. So I plug in the second machine, and it brings it up to RPM again. Then I plug in a vacuum, 21 amp vacuum. Then I plug in a 1500 watt heat gun that you can use on cars. So everything is running off the generator, and I'm pulling a load, and I'm reducing my natural gas by half.
Now, when you talk about running a genset off natural gas, was a genset designed to run on natural gas?
This was a gasoline generator, and I bought a conversion kit to run it off of natural gas, so if we have a power outage, I don't have to go to the gas station. So this is just an easy conversion kit. You take off the air filter, you put this orifice on front, put your air filter back in, and start it up. And if it's not starting up right, you adjust the screw till it starts up, and then you get it to run smooth, tighten down the lock nut, and you're done. It runs all by itself, no touch.
So you're saying that running Brown's gas with natural gas also improves the efficiency of the run?
Oh yeah, yep. I'm running Brown's gas. I'm running Brown's gas. I'm running Brown's gas, and in the bubbler system, I'm running the mixed fuel. And that mixed fuel from the HHO machines is not going to the intake. I have it hooked up to the actual gas line that goes into the carburetor, and the carburetor disperses the gas in front of the natural gas. They're not mixed. Everything has to be run separately. You don't want to run them together. So HHO gas is going through HHO gas and the mixed fuel. I have one machine with gasoline vapors. I had in one time of a test, and I had the other machine with hexane vapors. Both machines are going through my flashback arresters, and it will stop flashbacks all the time. So with the hexane, the flashback is almost like 99% reduced by using hexane. And if you run it lean, then the flashback goes up. So you got to have the right mix of hexane to prevent flashback. And I've run cutting torches, HHO gas, and hexane, HHO gas, and gasoline together out of a cutting torch.
Now, methane is just a single molecule of carbon with 4 hydrogens on it. Guess we're out of time here. I'm just puzzled by how it would improve it. But we're going to have to get back to that another time. Peter, we appreciate you joining us for our show. Tell us again your website.
HHOGasTechnology.com. HHOGASTechnology.com. And it goes right to my YouTube site right at the top of the page.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Free Energy Now, brought to you by PES, Pure Energy Systems. You may access past archives and upcoming show info at freeenergynow.net and join us for our daily news at freeenergynews.com. We invite you to see our directory of energy technologies at peswiki.com. That's peswiki.com. PES, the Pure Energy Systems Information Network.
There's also news from some of the other LNR parties. A lot of news, of course, on the ECAT, but Def Calian, there were 3 stories about them. The Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project had several stories. The HCAT, some updates on that. Phonon Energy, a new company, Seattle University. Lightstone, another new LNR company. And Piantelli had some updates. And then some general news, of course. There was quite a bit of that. So make sure you check that out. It's kind of a fun overview since it's been so long. We're covering a long period of time. Hoping to be a little more frequent on those digests. I used to do them once a week, but that was a lot of work and no less work to wait and do it every 2 weeks or 4 weeks. I try to be comprehensive on those. So anyway, that's the news on the LNR sector. Actually, that's not all the news in the LNR sector. Solar hydrogen trends down in California, those are the guys with over 100 or 1,000 times over unity hydrogen gas coming from their reactor that involves some 16 different processes, including fusion, fission, and transmutation, according to the model of the inventor Konstantin Balakirian. That's pretty exciting stuff. And he wrote an article titled Andrew Rossi's Drops Out of the LNR Race. I don't know if drop out is the right word because he's just basically rewording what he thinks is going on and trying to get away from the name nuclear, since that's such a hot potato politically. There's still obviously a very phenomenal reaction going on there that is extremely commercially viable testing of an ECAT reactor. According to Rossi, the testing has been completed and the report is being reviewed by a panel of academics to be published in a scientific magazine. And number two, Industrial Heat, the owners of the ECAT technology now, have built a 1 megawatt ECAT plant which will be installed on a production line and will provide heat for some kind of industrial process. Once that plant is installed at a customer's factory and has been operational for some time, it will be opened up for invited visitors from the press to view. According to Andrea Rossi, this could happen before the end of this year. Those are the most exciting or interesting developments in the sector. And also, Andrea Rossi just got his safety certification for his low and high temperature ECATs, which is a major milestone, one of the hurdles that has to be crossed before you go commercial. So kudos to them. But first, let's do our This Week in Free Energy recap. Leading the news in the last week was a story I put up just the next day after last week's This Week in Free Energy show. I was hoping to have this in time for that. I finally did my LENR to Market digest. It's been 4.5 months since I compiled that last. While I've not been able to do a comprehensive one this time, pulling from the many news sources, I was able to organize all of the 120 ECAT World articles by Frank Ackland. Gives an exciting overview of the burgeoning stage of development in the industry. Also, he gave me an overview when I was on Coast to Coast a few weeks ago. He said there's two major developments expected with regards to the ECAT. One, the publication of a report being written by European academics who have conducted long-term
Free energy now.
Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a world.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sterling Allen. You can join us online at freeenergyquest.com. We're joined today, August 28th, 2014, by Peter Crunk of HHO Gas Technologies, LLC. He focuses primarily on HHO gas projects, and besides that, anything that will free us from the bondage of the utilities and from gasoline, he says.